What's up guys, today we're going to be going over the new seasonal linear fusion rifle, the Sailspy pitch class, which is an arc linear, and in this video we'll be going over all of its different perks and breaking down what the god roll is for DPS and compare it to some of the other top linears in the game to see which one is the best right now. And before we get into that, if you're looking to pre-order Lightfall and you play it on Steam, you can do so by visiting my Nexus store. Link will be in the comments and description. It'll be the same price as Steam, but a little bit will go towards me and not to a big corporation, Steam. So jumping straight into this linear, looking at its perks, in the left there's gonna be really only one you want, Clown. You could go rapid hit if you're in a situation where you don't have, like Luna boots for reload speed, but most situations for boss DPS, Clown will be the best. Then in the right there will be quite a few damage perks I want to talk about. You could also go for Volt Shot or Swash for general gameplay, but for boss DPS there's gonna be 3 on this weapon we'll be talking about. Now the first damage perk will be Vorpal, which will be the lowest of the 3, but the most consistent because it will always be there, and that will be a 10% increase, which is obviously not that much, but better than nothing. And the next damage perk you can get is gonna be Frenzy, and this one will be a little bit higher than Vorpal at 15%, but you have to be in combat for, I believe it's like 12 or 13 seconds. So if you do have Frenzy, it'll obviously be better than Vorpal, but there's gonna be a lot of situations where you just simply cannot be in combat leading up to the boss fight, for example something like War Priest. And the final one will be Focused Fury, where you have to deal half of the magazine as precision damage to then get the buff, and this will be higher than Frenzy at 20%, but it requires you to first hit your first 3 shots to even get the buff. So for the first mag, it's not even gonna be there for half of the shots, but then once you proc the buff, it'll be there for 10 seconds, which means you'll definitely get off the next entire mag with the buff, and probably a majority of the next one after that too. So to see which one is better between Focus Fury and Frenzy, we're gonna have to look at some DPS numbers, and for this video I'm gonna be doing 2 mags, so 5 shots and 5 shots for all of the different linears in this video, and all of them will be with accelerated coils. And I'm not going to take into account the left column perks because the left column perks won't necessarily change the DPS of 1 and 2 mag. What they do is make it so you don't have to reload as often. So for example with Clown, Triple Tap, or 4 times the Charm, let's say there's a boss fight where you have time to shoot off 15 shots. Without one of those perks on the left, let's say you have a 5, 6, or even 7 mag, you're going to have to reload twice and use 3 mags to shoot 15 shots, right? But with one of those perks on the left, you will only have to use 2 mags, which means 1 less reload, way less downtime from reloading, meaning you can probably shoot off at least 1 if not 2 more shots in the same amount of time. So over long boss fights, those perks on the left definitely greatly increase your DPS. It's hard to show off with numbers because every situation is different, and depending on how long the fight is, it will change how many reloads you need. So even though we're not showing those off in this video, those are still extremely important to have on these weapons. And Triple Tap and 4 times the Charm is even better than something like Clown Cartridge, because the ammo you get back to the magazine is from thin air, which will greatly improve your total damage output. So any of the linears with one of those 3 perks is going to be automatically better than almost any of the other ones. But just jumping into the DPS of this linear with the 3 different damage perks, once again 5 shots, reload 5 shots. It's going to take quite a while. Most linears take roughly just over 10 seconds for the full 10 shots, which means the DPS with Vorpal will be 73.8, then over 2 mags almost 65,000, which is pretty good, and it'll always be there for you. But in situations where you can proc Frenzy, it's gonna be a little bit higher at almost 79 and at 69,000. Then next with Focused Fury, even though it's gonna be a higher percent at 20, because of the fact that your first 3 shots don't have any buff, it's actually gonna be a lower DPS overall in both 1 and 2 mags. So Frenzy will be the way to go with this linear, and Focused Fury wouldn't be a bad choice either in situations where you can't have Frenzy. But first, let's compare that to the Stromchaser, which is the other top arc linear in the game right now. But this one will be a burst and be completely different. So looking at damage on Carl, it'll usually hit for these numbers, but this weapon's damage perk of choice will be Fire in Line, where you need 2 allies nearby. So looking at the damage increase of that, it'll take it to these numbers right here, which will be roughly a 21.2-ish increase to the total damage. But the big thing about this linear is if you can actually hit all 3 headshots or not. So this is the breakdown if you hit 3 headshots, 2, or 1. And as you see, it falls off pretty drastically, and I would say on average you usually hit roughly 2 of the 3 as headshots. But we're gonna look at DPS of all three variations if you hit 1, 2, or 3 headshots. So looking at the rate of fire, this one's gonna take quite a lot longer than the normal linears. And when it first came out, it did not, but they fixed the way it fires, now taking over 14 seconds for the full 10 shots. So the DPS, if you only hit 1 headshot, is obviously pretty bad and really not worth using. But I would say the better average would be if you hit 2 of the 3. And as you see, the numbers are still lower than all the other linears in this video. So on average, I would say the Stromchaser is actually one of the worst linears right now. But in a situation where you have div, or you can just hit all 3 headshots, the numbers are pretty good at 80.9 and almost 74,000. And the next linears in this video will be the Taipan and also the Reed's Regret. The Taipan you can easily craft right now from doing a quest line from the Enclave. And with that, you can craft one with triple tap and fire in line, which is the god roll for the weapon. And if you have an old Reed's Regret, you can have the exact same roll on that one too. The one difference is one is stasis and one is void. But for most players, the Taipan will be the easier one to acquire, because if you don't have this one already, more than likely you won't ever have it, to be honest. But both will have the exact same DPS numbers, so I'm going to be using the Reeds because that's what I got. And once again, in this clip, I did not have the right spec on, so just adding that back in with the calculations. And since mine has a charge time masterwork, I'm going to have to refire the 5 and 10 shots. It should be the same as every other linear in the game, but just depending on if you have accelerated or, you know, whatever, that changes the damage and the rate of fire. So the DPS of my exact Reed's Regret is 80.3, then 70.2 for 2 mags. So those numbers are kind of right in there with the Stromchaser hitting all 3 headshots. So yeah, those 2 linears are definitely very strong. But now the final boss of linears, the Cataclysmic with the bait and switch and 4 times the charm. I do not have the god roll yet on my account. I definitely need to craft one soon. But what bait and switch does is if you deal damage with all equipped weapons within a short time, you will get a damage boost. So usually it hits for that 62.8 number. But now if we do damage with both of our other 2 weapons, it will go up to 84.9, which is going to be the highest damage increase of 35%. And it will last for 10 seconds. So if we look at the rate of fire, we have to take into account the fact that we have to shoot the other 2 weapons first. So that's also going to have a little bit of downtime at the beginning. But looking at that, we should be able to get 9 of the 10 shots off with the full buff. And if we add all that up and look at DPS, the DPS of 1 mag and 2 mag are practically the same at 66 and 67,000, which is obviously quite a bit lower than the other linears because of the fact that we have roughly 2 seconds of downtime before we actually shoot the linear. But to be fair to this weapon, most time you're going to start off with like a Izanagi shot or a Witherhoard shot, which won't be really downtime when you think about it. So we just kind of take out that 2 seconds downtime and start the timer from when we actually use the linear. As you see, the numbers are by far the highest in the video at 92.5 and almost 80,000. So if you're coming prepared for the boss fight with the Cataclysmic plus like a Izanagi or with a Horde, it will obviously result in the highest DPS. But if you're just playing in general, the downtime of shooting your first 2 weapons is a net decrease in DPS compared to just shooting a different linear with something like Fireline. So overall, between the 2 arc linears, the Sailspy isn't bad necessarily, it just doesn't have a great right column perk. And compared to the Stromchaser, if you are in a situation where you can hit all 3 headshots, the Stromchaser is better. But I would say on average, the Sailspy is the better arc linear fusion right now and definitely worth picking one up. And then for like organized boss fights where you're purposely just doing DPS and DPS only, you can't go wrong with one of the triple tap fireline linears, but the Cataclysmic is still going to be a little bit better in most situations and definitely result in the highest total damage output also. And yeah, I think that is going to be it for the commentary. Maybe there's a little bit of strike gameplay left. I'm not sure how long the commentary ran. But overall, you definitely can't go wrong with any of these linears. They're all extremely good. And yeah, let me know which one is your favorite down below. Like usual, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next time.